welcome to the Citizen channel. Today we're going to do a History Boys feature, and it's a History Boys stroke horrible histories. You know, I do a little horrible histories. Unfortunately, this falls into that category. And we're going to go back. I'm going to take you back to the 10th of November 1994. So the clue's in the title, isn't it? It's History Boys feature, United versus City at Old Trafford. But it's also a horrible histories feature, if you like. So, not great. I don't shy away from doing that. I don't mind doing these sort. That's why I did the horrible histories at the end of the day. That's what makes us fans, isn't it? The lows, so we can celebrate the highs, of course. And we've got to embrace and celebrate these things as and when they come along. So I don't ever shy away from doing things like this. I know if you watch my vlogs, I do a lot of things on the programmes, and obviously a lot of programmes are obviously always positive for the team who produces the programme. Occasionally you get guys where they admit, obviously put defeats in and stuff, but they always try and keep happy, clappy play. It is what makes a football fan, isn't it? The lows, so we can enjoy the highs, whether it's winning a match or winning a trophy. That's what being a football fan is all about. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to talk about United versus City on the 10th of November 1994, a game at Old Trafford. Just away from City, just to give you a bit of clarification of 1994. I mean, personally, I was about a month away from leaving a catering manager's job at New Smithfield Market, and I would open my very first, and it's the only one I had, my own video shop the following May, just before the end of this season. I would open a video shop in Manchester after leaving that catering manager job at New Smithfield Market. So obviously at that stage I hadn't planned that, it just sort of happened, but there you go. On TV, it was the first ever episode on that night. That night was the first ever episode of Vicar of Dibley. Yeah, that aired that night, so that was interesting. 600,000 UK residents had access to the internet. There you go. So fantastic. I don't think I did just then. I got it quite quick, but I don't think I quite had it then. On November the 19th, of course, the first national lottery draw. That's my son's birthday, November the 19th. The very first national lottery draw took place as well this year. Pato Banton, remember him? Yeah, I do. I remember the song. I don't particularly remember him, but he was number one with Baby Come Back in the UK charts. And as far as the albums are concerned, if you're old enough like me, you know what an album was. Crossroad by Bon Jovi was the number one album at the time. At the cinema, I like my films. Lion King and Forrest Gump were the big films of that year. They were packing them in at the cinema. And £1 in your pocket then, well, it'd be worth just over £2 now. So it doesn't sound much, does it, for all that length of time ago? 20, how many years is it? 27 years ago, yeah. It'd be worth £2 and 4p a pound in those days, I say. But as we always say, it probably bought you a bit more, didn't it, than it does now. So back to the pitch, yeah. Brian Hope was in charge, of course. And we sat a respectable, if not spectacular, 9th out of 22 teams in the FA Carling Premiership, it was called then. But we're already 9 points behind the defending champions, who were actually United, who sat third themselves. So they weren't top. They having an okay season, but they hadn't quite hit the heights of the previous season. They sat at third, 2 points behind Blackburn and 5 points behind a team called Newcastle. I wonder what happened to them. Newcastle United with a game in hand, and we'd all played 30. Well, we'd played 13 games. Obviously, Newcastle and Blackburn had played 14 at the time, but United and us had both played 13. City chairman, of course, Francis Lee, had only been in the job for a few months. Everything was hunky-dory, everyone was happy-clappy, and we're all sort of quite looking forward to the future. We had plans, of course, of the Kipax was being redeveloped at that time, and we had plans of a brand new main road, some great images. There's a pull-out somewhere. I've got my programme for a game, but obviously it's still stuck in. I've not pulled it out, but I do have one somewhere. I don't know where it is, of the remodelled main road, based on that sort of Kipax format, wasn't it? So there'll be an image up there, so if you remember that, and the dreams we had of what we could do with Main Road. And we were, of course, celebrating. It was 1994, so a famous Manchester City was born in 1894, of course. So we were celebrating our centenary year, and various celebrations were going on in and around the club at the time. So, as I said, off the pitch, there's a lot of positivity, despite a reduced ground capacity. Obviously, the crowds were a little bit down. I think we were about the 11th highest at the time in the top league, which was quite low for City. We usually did better than that, but obviously we only had a capacity of 25,000. Obviously, we were averaging just over 21,000. So it wasn't too bad, but that's what affected the crowds, certainly in the 90s as well, which were a little bit lower perhaps than sometimes in our history, if you like, generally. So it was off to Old Trafford, off to the old swamp, as we like to call it, or we like to kindly call it. Reasonable hopes. It wasn't always an easy place to visit, of course. We'd managed the occasional draw, but yeah, victories were quite hard to come by at the time. But Horton was positive. Yeah, we just had a 3-3 draw at Main Road. That was an interesting game with Southampton. And Mr. Horton was quoted as saying that City were very close to becoming a top-class side. There you go. So we weren't far away, guys. So we're better to test this statement and our mettle than a visit to the home of the champions, of course. United, all right, things were, as I said, but they're okay. They were third. They just won at Villa 2-1. But previous to that, they'd just been humiliated in front of 114,000 at the Camp Nou, or the new camp, I don't know what we call it these days, and had been destroyed by Barcelona in the Champions League. And a certain bloke, the name rang a bell, I must admit, was in the Barcelona lineup that day. Pep Guardiola, yeah, he was in the Barca 11 that night. So I don't know where I remember that name from, but yeah, it sort of hit me as I looked down the team sheets, etc. So there we go, Old Trafford, a capacity crowd. Yeah, I think they were knocking down the North Stand at the end of the season, but they must have had a reduced capacity as well, because it was a more or less capacity crowd of 43,738 at Old Trafford for this match. And City fans there and City fans everywhere. It would sort of be an afternoon to forget, guys. So please listen on. Don't turn off. But yeah, we've got some interesting stuff from a report and some thoughts, etc. The teams for this day: United. Well, it's a sort of who's who of quite good players, I think. This wasn't it? Schmeichel, Keane, Irwin, Bruce, Pallister, Cantona, Ince, McClare, Hughes, Kanchelskis, Giggs. I mean, that's not a bad team. It's okay. The sub Scholes, Neville, Walsh. I don't know which Neville that was, by the way. I assume it was Gary. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't be bothered going and looking at United facts. I don't want to give their pages a look unless I need to. For City, yeah, we had a bit of a problem. Curley was injured at the time, was one of our mainstays, of course, our captain and leader at the back. So it's never going to be easy with Curley out. But obviously, we add to this, Colton was injured. Tony Colton, our regular, was injured. But we also had another couple of goalies called Dibble and Margetson. But for somehow, both of these guys had managed to get banned. Dibble at first team level and Margetson at second team level. So we literally had to rely on a guy called Simon Tracy. So there you go, in goal, that we got on loan, I think, from Sheffield at the time. And this was his third of his three and only games for City at this game at Old Trafford. So we're struggling just a little bit. So the 11 for City read Tracy, Edgill, Ian Brightwell, because David was around as well, Vonk, Phelan, Lomas, Flitcroft, Quinn, Walsh, Beagrit, and some of it not bad, perhaps not up there with the United team as such, but the subs were David Brightwell, as I mentioned, AD Mike, and another keeper that we dragged in, Mr. Burridge. Yeah, Mr. Burridge was on the bench as a keeper substitute. Unfortunately, yeah, the headlines the following day after what became a 5-0 mauling, a 5-0 thrashing for City, of course. We had Paul Hince labelled his headline, Embarrassments of the Blues. David Meek, who did his little piece for the MEN, wrote Andre lights up the City, and also United at a canter, obviously, for Mr. Kanchelskis, who didn't have a bad game this game. Yeah, so City were humble. So we're going to go over to Paul Hince, whose little headlines, sub-headlines read, Just Champion Reds, Embarrassment of the Blues, of course. So we'll go over to Paul Hince for his thoughts on this match this day. It's not so much a match report, more a thought thing. David Meeks is more a match report, but I'm not going to suffer more by reading his out. So let's just have a look at Paul Hince's verdict in the Manchester Evening News. He says, Manchester City can let last night's Old Trafford nightmare ruin their season, or they can show what they are made of, just as the Reds have done since taking a similar mauling in Barcelona. Only time will tell how much damage has been done to the morale of the main roadmen after one of the most humiliating defeats in 100 years of derby matches between the two old rivals. And to make matters worse, the wounds were self-inflicted, for on one occasion above all others, when the Blues need to wear their shirts with pride, too many of them couldn't have been spotted with the aid of field glasses. There are no excuses for an unacceptable performance like this from City, and none will be offered. Forget the fact the Blues without Keith Curle and Tony Kompany, it was still 11 against 11, though you would never have guessed it from a display which is an embarrassment. City weren't just beaten last night, they were chewed up and spat out in little pieces all over the pitch by a United side which looked exactly what they are, the proud and worthy champions of English soccer. All right, calm down, Paul. You don't get too giddy here. As bad as the Blues were on the night, which will haunt them for years to come, and us, let's not detract from a performance by Alex Ferguson's side, which even by their own high standards must surely have matched anything they've produced in their back-to-back championship seasons. Wherever you looked, there was a diamond quality about the Reds, which suggests that the title trophy will remain at Old Trafford for a third year. It didn't. Steve Bruce and his magnificent defence hardly gave Niall Quinn and Paul Walsh a sniff. No wonder the Reds haven't conceded a league goal at home this season. Bruce and his mates wouldn't give a crust to a starving tramp. In midfield, City youngsters Gary Flitcroft, Steve Lomas worked their socks off but never got to grips with the vastly underrated Brian McClare or the amazing Paul Ince, who was running on a different sort of petrol than any other player. Hat-trick hero Andrei Kanchelskis and Eric Cantona was simply devastating. The next few days are going to provide a massive test of City boss Brian Horton's managerial ability and of the character of his players. But there was one small crumb of comfort for the Blues too, buried among the shame of his side's performance last night, for at least Horton now knows which of his players he would want by his shoulder in the trenches when the bullets start flying. So there you go. Thank you, Mr. Paul Ince. An interesting verdict on the game, obviously. Not very positive, but we got used to that over that time, didn't we? The form guide, Tracy, not great reading. Tracy got a 5, Edghill 5, Brightwell 5, Vonk 5, Phelan 5. Lomas and Flitcroft both got a 6. It sort of reflects what Hinsey was saying, wasn't it? Quinn got a 5, Walsh got a 5, Summerby got a 5, but Peter Beagrie got a 7. So well done, Peter Beagrie. So there you go. Kevin Cooper was a ref. He got an 8 out of 10. An 8 out of 10 for a ref. Something wrong there, isn't there? Our man of the match, I think the man of the match generally was Kanchelskis for United, but certainly for City's man of the match, Peter Beagrie. Paul Ince says City's tricky winger was the only Blue forward to trouble United's granite defence. There you go, United's granite defence. So what did Fergie think? Let's just stick with the Manchester Evening News. Fergie's verdict on this game. Let's have a see what old Red Conk thought of this. From the word go, we were really sharp with lots of penetration. The first goal in Derby is so important, and Cantona's first touch for it was brilliant. I am told we have created a little bit of Derby history. Well, we have a little bit of our own, don't we, a few years later at the Swamp. But hey, there you go. We created a little bit of Derby history, but the really important thing is that we have kept our league momentum going. In the past few weeks, we have started to catch up, and last night's score will improve our goal difference. We can't live on that result, of course, but I have got to say the performance was superb. Some of our football in the second half was terrific. Their 2 young players in midfield couldn't handle Paul Ince. Andrei Kanchelskis deservedly took the eye with his 3 goals, but your midfield pace and penetration were incredible, and the key was a really good night, taking us into second place. There you go. So that was what Mr. Ferguson thought. How about Brian, very close to becoming a top-class side, Horton? What about his assessment of the night? Well, Horton's verdict, the result speaks for itself. We have not done ourselves justice because we are a better team than that, and a defeat of this nature is very hard to swallow. We didn't pass the ball and we had no movement, and you simply cannot play like that against a team of United's quality. Maybe they had a point to prove after the Barcelona game, but we certainly helped them to prove it. If you let United play like we did, then you have got problems. The goal, which came from deflection just before half-time, came at a crucial time. That was when it should have been fight time, but when we needed to stand up and be counted, some of our players didn't want to know. All the things we have been good at this season, we were awful at tonight, and it's frustrating to think we could have undone some of the work which had helped us to claim some decent results. So there you go. Yeah, the goals that night, obviously, as we know, Chelsea's got a hat-trick. He scored his goals on 43, 47 and 89 minutes. Cantona had scored he was the opening goal on 24 minutes. And a guy called Hughes, again a name I sort of forget, he scored on 70 minutes. Yeah, for us Blues, it did. Definitely took, obviously, as I said, I worked at Smithfield Market at the time. It was an absolute nightmare there, obviously, for all us Blues there, having to suffer the indignity of this defeat, to be honest with you. And it was bad enough being at Old Trafford, of course. That was even worse. But hey, this is what it is, isn't it? This is what makes football, and fans, real fans anyway, not the plastic ones who come and go. It was a shocking result, and we'd had some bad ones, but as I said, we'd never been hammered like this at Old Trafford. It's certainly in my recent memory at the time, or in City's recent memory at the time, of course. To add insult to injury, they would also beat us 3-0 at Main Road the following February. So not great, not the greatest season for the derby. United, as I said, yeah, even despite Mr. Hince's glowing report there, United would fail to retain the title, finishing second to Blackburn. And they would fail after that miserable game against Barcelona. They wouldn't even get out of the knockout stage. They wouldn't even get out of the groups in the Champions League. So I don't even think they dropped into the UEFA, into the Europa. Then it was just straight out. You were out, and that was all there was to it. So they didn't even get to that. They did reach Wembley. They did get to another final. They got to an FA Cup final, but sadly, a team called Everton beat them 1-0. So it wasn't all right. That's what we had to live on those days. United failing, didn't it? It didn't happen often, but when we did, we sort of enjoyed it. But it was disappointing for them, but pretty much it was pretty disappointing for us as well, let's be honest about it. We finished a poor 17th out of 22 teams. We knocked out of both domestic cups in round 5, the League Cup quarter-final, which it was at round 5. We lost 4-0 at Palace in that one, which it looked as though we might have a chance, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately. And just to look at the defence, look at Simon Tracy. Poor lad came in, got a bit of stick, didn't play great. I think he let in 9 goals in 3 games, so he didn't stay long at City. But we played 4 different keepers that season as well as Tracy. We played Dibble, Colton, and of course Burridge as well came into the reckoning, and we had Margeson around as well. But then the next season, a guy called Ike Himmel came in. If you remember that, I think he was an ever-present all the next season, and it was only Dibble who remained from those goalkeepers that had played during this season. So there you go, just a little side thing. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this little History Boys stroke horrible histories feature. Oh, enjoyed it. I mean, we got to enjoy it, haven't we? That's what it is. I used to quite in a sort of weird way enjoy wallowing in defeat sometimes in the old days. Just take it out. Well, let's keep it down to. If we played them next time, we'd say, let's keep it down to 4 this time. That's a bonus. That's how you think, isn't it, when things aren't going right? But hope you enjoyed it anyway. Let me know your thoughts if you were there and what your thoughts were at the time, of course. And as I say, well, it wasn't the greatest time to be a City fan by any means, but hey, we were still there, weren't we? And my poor lad, obviously, he was at an age then where obviously he was going to start high school and get plenty of stick when he went there, but he stuck with it, didn't he? And we all got he got the glory. I'd seen a bit of glory. I'm old enough to know that before this, but the younger lads at the time, the generation below me perhaps, sort of didn't really know that, did they? It was a while before we could start to celebrate a little bit. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this History Boys stroke horrible histories feature. Manchester United 5, Manchester City 0 on the 10th of November 1994 in the Carling Premiership League. Anyway, thanks for watching. What are we going to do the rest of the day? Have a great one. Catch yourselves, catch your friends, catch your families. More important, let's all look after each other. As we meet here again on the Citizen channel. Perhaps have a look at my film and TV channel if you get a chance to have a look at that. That'd be absolutely fantastic if you can do that. I'd wonder. Try and inform and entertain on there as well. But either way, if it's there or back on here, all I ever ask is please stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.